All right. Fantastic. So, welcome to another Inspiration Behind the Stories. And I am here with the fabulous Regina O'Melveny. I Please tell me if I said your name incorrectly.
Perfect. That was perfect,
Yay!
Lisa. Yay. And
Yay!
and and mostly people don't get it because they want to say "Oh Mulvaney" or something like
Really?
that. But
Oh,
yeah, it's "Oh Melvaney." You got it.
excellent, excellent. And we are here to talk about Regina's inspiration behind her absolutely gorgeous book, The Sea Cure. And so if it's okay, we're just going to dive right into it. And guys, anyone who's watching, go ahead. If you've got questions, go ahead and pop it into the comment section or the chat rather of wherever you're watching this, because we love questions. Just saying. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. So with that, what was the moment that made you say, oh my gosh, I have got to write this book?
So I really like this question, and I can't say there was an absolute moment when it happened. It was more of a slow process. Probably it began, if I had to say, with a trip I made to Washington, D.C., and I visited the National Museum of Women in the Arts there, which I
Oh,
highly recommend if anyone is in that area, go there because it's a wonderful museum devoted to the works of women. So at the time, they had an exhibit of Lavinia Fontana, a woman artist of the Renaissance. And I was just captivated by one particular portrait she did. I stood in front of it for a long time. It was a portrait of Antonieta Gonzalez,
mm,
and she is a furry woman. She's a furry girl,
mm,
and mainly because her gaze was so just intense and tender and lovely. So I
mm,
just wondered about her, like what's her story? What was her story? And then for years, I didn't do anything. So
mm.
she was kind of with me, I think, germinating in there. I was working on other projects. And then at a certain moment, I think I actually had a dream about her.
Oh,
And
wow.
I felt compelled to follow that question, who is she? What's her story?
Mm,
What was her life like at that time? And I did some research about her, but then I let the research go and just let her story come through as I felt she was giving it to me. So that's
wow.
that's what happened there.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. Um, Now, so you quite beautifully provided like what first sparked the story. So the natural second question is, so why the story now?
Yes, and that's such a good question because, and I have to say that as I was writing it, I wasn't thinking of that. I wasn't thinking, why is this story current? Or
Mm,
because I work very intuitively. I just kind of, my main question is what story wants to be told?
mhm,
And I am, as a writer, almost more listening, being observant, and as a listener, what is the story that wants to be told? So as I followed that, I wasn't thinking about, our current situation. However, after I finished the book, sometime after I finished the book, it occurred to me that this is a very current story in the sense of being a parallel. The issues that are here, the themes that are here, are very critical and very parallel to things that we're experiencing now, the cultural dilemmas that we're going through now. There was, at that time when Tonina was living at the beginning of the 17th century,
mhm,
she was living on a sugar plantation, and her family ran
mhm,
the sugar plant. Her father, in particular, was managing the sugar
mhm,
plantation. They had slaves. They were living on the island of
mhm,
Tenerife, and sugar was the crop.
mhm,
And throughout the world at that point, in the Caribbean, also in different parts of the world, and in Tenerife in particular, where this
mhm,
story is set, sugar was like the comparable to our oil. In other words,
Mm,
there was a lot of profiteering. There was a lot of cruelty in the slave trade, which was all about getting sugar to people, and particularly the nobility in Europe, who would have their chefs create these fantastical, sugar castles and sugar, marzipan things, because sugar was a highly prized and rare at that time
mm.
kind of product. So the kinds of things that people were willing to do for profiteering absolutely, I think, parallels what's going on now. Unfortunately, yeah,
Unfortunately, and understood. Absolutely
yes,
understood. Um, Now, since you were really diving into her life and what was going on during that period, what were some of the key questions that really stayed with you that you felt as though you had to answer as a part of the narrative? And actually, just to back up a little bit, if could you give like that like two-sentence description of what the story is about? That would be amazing.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so it's it crosses genres. I think of it as actually my editor called it historical fantasy. It's
Mhm.
literary fiction, but definitely there's adventure here. So it's an adventure and a love story, an unusual love story between two characters. And I haven't mentioned Hans yet, the Dutch sailor who meets Tonina when he's actually aboard a ship of the Mad. I'll just say something about that. I know you said two sentences. I'm going
No,
on.
no, go, go, go. This is fascinating. It's fascinating.
So, at any rate, Hans came to me through when I was reading Michel Foucault's History of Madness, where I discovered that there were ships that would take on the mad. They were paid by the city fathers along the Rhine to take on the mad, perhaps what we would think of today as the homeless. They wanted to get rid of them, and they
Oh,
would, send them on these ships for what they called the sea cure, which was never really defined what the sea cure was. And,
mm,
I'll leave that up to the reader's um, interpretation to find that. But at any rate, Hans was taking care of the mad aboard ship when they
mm,
docked at Tenerife, and he meets Tonina there. And so from there, after they meet up, they go on a sea journey, a sea quest that does not end as one would expect. And they have an adventure, an exploration, not only of place, but also of their lives. It's a kind of reverse Beauty and the Beast.
mm.
Um, that interpretation could go into it because Tonina, of course, is the furry woman. Hans is a very handsome sailor. So there's that aspect to it as well.
Ooh, I love that. Uh,
There's a lot going on there.
there's a lot going on there, but it just sounds stunning. It just, ah, um, now, what would really make the viewers want to view this book? Who is this story truly about? And I know you've touched on it, but
Mm-hmm.
if you could flesh out a little bit.
Sure, sure. I'm happy to do that. So I would say that essentially it's an exploration of relationships of friendship, because also Tonina has a dear friend Marilena who accompanies her, and Marilena has is a map colorist, and the two of them together have in the past colored maps. So there's friendship involved between women,
Mhm.
and very strong women characters, I will say. Both Marilena and Tonina, very strong women characters. And then there is also the relationship, the love between Tonina and Hans, and how that plays out. And the question is, how is that going to play out differently? Um, it's a very unusual relationship, not one that one would expect. So I would say that it centers in the relationships, the love relationships, the friendships, and then of course Marilena also has a love relationship that I won't go into. It's very also very unusual. So
Love it. Now, There are so many fascinating storylines going on within this and so many engaging characters. What is truly at stake if things go wrong?
Mm, that's a great question. So I would say that first of all, and foremost, survival. Survival on many levels. When they reach the unknown island, they have to figure out how to get food and water, where are they going to sleep, what kinds of the kinds of challenges that they meet in this unknown place that at first appears to be uninhabited.
Mhm.
Um, they have to also deal with the fact that now that they're on an unknown island where it seems that, of course, that it's uninhabited, but there are no social constraints, there are no social structures. How are they going to transform their lives that they were in some ways escaping, wanting to escape, yearning for some other life, for Tonina, yearning to escape the life of the sugar plantation and the cruelties there. For Hans, it was yearning to escape the constraints of his apprenticeship to a printer in the city of Leiden, because he was ill-treated there. So how are they going to create this new life? That is at stake, and that is part of the survival as well. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Now, we've already spoken about, so we have fantasy, we have a bit of thriller, we
Mhm.
have romance. What kind of emotional rides can a reader anticipate?
I think there are several, and it will be up to the reader, but I'll just mention that um, the story does begin in very dire circumstances for both characters, very difficult, challenging circumstances. And then it gradually arcs through the many adventures they have and the many encounters that they have, to a place of really uh, recreating themselves, creating themselves anew. And there's a lot of joy and eroticism in that too. So,
Ooh, lovely. Now, going back in terms of the actual writing of this
mhm.
incredible story, what did you find to be the hardest part or parts of the book to write?
Mhm. I think for me, the hardest part really was writing into the character of Jacinto.
Hmm.
Jacinto is a slave on the island of Tenerife on the sugar plantation. And I think the reason why it was so difficult for me is that his situation is so full of these very brutal contradictions. He is a driver, and what that means is that he was responsible for serving the master, but as a person who would punish the slaves who were lagging behind.
Oh
And
boy.
yeah, so he's in a very complicated, situation for himself as well. And I think that also, as I did some research on it, I discovered how very, very harsh the sugar work was. It involves, I mean, the sugar cane leaves. I actually got a sugar cane plant because I was curious about this, but they're very sharp. I mean, if
Hmm.
you run your hand along the leaf of the sugar cane, it will cut your hand. So
Wow.
there's it's there were lots of injuries, lots of cuts, and then of course in the boiling down of the cane itself, there were lots of burns and injuries in that sense. So it was a very dangerous, actually, profession to be in, and of course for the slaves they weren't treated well and they weren't given protection. So
Mm.
I think Jacinto, I wanted to make sure that I could portray the inner conflict and contradictions of his situation, and yeah, so that I worked on that.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, where were you in your life when you felt as though the story was really taking shape? And how do you feel actions, if you're okay to talk about this, and if not, it's all good. Um, was there anything that was occurring within your life that really impacted uh as you were writing?
I think there was, and I can say that as I was writing the story or considering the story, I was becoming more and more intently aware of our climate
Mm,
crisis. And I haven't spoken about this yet, but I think it's important because I do think Tonina is a bridge between the so-called civilized world at that time and the natural world and nature, which is a healing for them. So
mm,
I became more and more aware and really distressed by what the ways in which we're living and creating the climate crisis, and of course, add to that the fact that I had now two grandchildren.
mm.
So with my grandchildren, thinking about their futures and how what is the world that we are leaving to them, that became even more intense. So I could say that that did affect the novel very much.
Oh,
Even though my connection to nature is there, was there at the very beginning, has always been in my life, but it became more intense. Yeah.
and what a lovely introduction or transition to my next question.
Hmm.
How do you feel as though writing this has changed you?
Mm, mm. I have felt throughout my life. I started as a poet, not a
Mhm.
novelist. I have always felt that writing changes me. I have felt rather like a student, a student to the work, because I feel like the writer somehow knows more than I do. The
Mm,
story knows more than I do. So as it unfolds in the writing, I learn things. I learn
mhm,
things anew, and so in particular, I guess I could say with this book, the again going back to the importance of the natural world really came home to me, and also the fact, also I should mention this aspect, also the idea of both Hans and Tonina as outcasts in their particular situations, in their cultures. So what does it mean to be the outcast who then has to recreate another life? That aspect became very strong too, and probably has been at work in my life as well. I feel like I have had to create, constantly, well, I guess constantly recreating identity,
mm.
and now as a grandmother, loving it. But anyways, yeah, yeah.
Oh, and we have an absolutely fabulous question in the chat from DK Spartan, and I apologize if I said the identification incorrectly. So who is your favorite character in the book? And I'm gonna tag
Ooh,
onto that, like, and why?
ooh, ooh, that's going to be difficult to answer. Um, but hmm. Yeah, I feel very attached to them all. Marilena, Tonina, Hans. But if I had to say, I would probably say Tonina. I
Mm.
would say Tonina, the furry woman. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And why?
And because of her, first of all, she has a certain wonderful ferocity,
Mm,
a certain strength in herself. And even though she feels outcast, she has a deep sense of her own strength, and which enables her to leave the island. That's
mhm,
what enables her, not just her connection to Hans, which is strong, but also she's fiercely engaged in desiring another life for herself. So I love that about her.
ah, I
I think
love
she's I think
that.
she's I think she's probably more courageous than I really am, but I can take inspiration from her.
Oh, I love that. Ah, stunning. Stunning. Uh, Now what surprised you the most while you were writing this? And I think you already touched on it, but if you could flesh it
Well,
out a little bit.
yes, yeah. I think as I mentioned before, my process of writing is I think it was V.S. Nepal who said, I only know the story. It's like driving at night, and I can only see as far as the headlights illuminate.
Mm,
So I'm feeling, the story is unfolding for me. And when the characters reach the unknown island, I don't know what they're going to find there. And I'm curious. I'm wondering, okay, so what's going to happen now? How are they going to survive? But what are they going to find here? And when they encountered the hermaphrodites, the town, the village of hermaphrodites, I did not expect that. And I loved it. I thought, wow, how how is this going to play out? So I think that is it, the village of hermaphrodites, and they became more and more important in the story. So that was really interesting, surprising at first. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Um, Now, what character do you feel as though challenged you the most as you were writing the book?
Mm. I would probably have to, I would probably go back to Jacinto.
Okay.
Yeah, the slave and his terrible situation, challenged me to be really, just really observant, really empathic, and dig in to that terrible contradiction he was living with. So that
Wow.
would have been,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, is there anything that almost didn't make it into the book? And if so, why? And why did you
Mhm.
choose to keep it in?
Good question. Yeah. So I think it was Pummel, who is the madman in the box. And
Mm,
the reason why he almost didn't make it into the book is I thought, this is too extreme. I think this is too extreme. The madman who's locked in a box.
mm,
Although I had done research on the mad in that century, the 17th century, and they were not well treated, and they
mm.
were in really intolerable situations. But somehow Pommel seemed almost too much for me. However, as I wrote more into Pommel, he took on an almost mythic persona. He was almost a mythic character. Um, there's a Greek character who, I think it's Proteus, who can change shapes at will. So, in other words, he can be a man, he can be an ox, he can be a bird. And for some reason, Pummel took on some characteristics of Proteus.
Hmm.
And he also felt very important to the character Hans on the ship. Um, Almost a kind of, this is going to sound very odd, but almost a kind of father's figure as the story continues. So he became important, and I had to keep him. Yeah.
Oh, he sounds lovely. Who do you feel will fall the hardest for this book? And my favorite follow-up, why?
Okay. Yes. Yes. Um, I probably will give multiple answers for that, but I
Okay.
think that readers of fantasy will love this book. Also, readers of historical fiction, because those elements are very rich and in the book. Both of those, I think, those readers, and also the romantic um, relationships and the friendship between Marilena and Tonina is wonderful. I love that. So there are many things to enjoy in this book. Yeah.
Ah, gorgeous. Do you have any have you gotten any feedback from readers saying like certain aspects that they absolutely weren't expecting?
Because the book is so newly out, I haven't gotten a lot of feedback, but um, I have received some
Okay.
that the characters, that the characters were very strong, that they really enjoyed Hans, and especially Tonina would have been the most surprising to have a sense of her as a woman, as a furry woman, and not as a repulsive furry woman, but as
Mm.
a very fascinating person, as a fascinating character. So I've gotten some feedback about that.
Ah, gorgeous. Now, if someone reads like let's say the first 20 pages, what
Mhm.
what keeps them going?
I think, well, the first 20 pages, I should mention the book is in two voices, the voices of Hans, the sailor, and the voice of Tonina. The first chapter is in the voice of
Mhm,
Hans. So he's in a
mhm,
situation, as I think what will keep them going is that he's in a situation as a compositor in a printing press establishment where he's not allowed to leave the apprenticeship. He's clearly a much better, I should say, a compositor is a typesetter. So, and at that time it would have involved lead type, and he would have put it in a special wooden frame and then run it through a machine by hand. It would have been hand printed. His Master Towson, is not kind to him, and so he's also a person who's very fascinated by the books that they're printing. He teaches himself to read. He actually steals an emblemata book and takes it with him on the journey. An emblemata book is very interesting. Of course, there was a lot of printing in that time of biblical texts. And Gutenberg had already been in around for a century or two. So, but emblemata were interesting to me because some of them there was one called the Emblemata Amatoria, which was a kind of little book about all the varieties of love. And so that was something that Hans was very taken with, the varieties of love. And he is wanting out of his situation. And he doesn't know how he's going to do that because he's poor. He sleeps in the print shop, and he one day comes upon a ship, the Cockaigne ship, which is the ship of the mad, and thinks suddenly this is a way out. He's going to ship aboard, and he's going to go on an adventure. And he's not reluctant to be the one who treats the mad because he has a mother who was troubled also. His mother was troubled, so he has some experience with that, though he grew up as an orphan largely.
Oh, wow.
So I think the adventure he's about to take, the ways in which he's going to change his life, is going to entice the reader to find out how he's going to do that.
Oh, gorgeous. And we have a comment that Hans sounds like a self-made man.
He is largely, yeah. He is largely a self-made man, and he follows his curiosity. And he has a great deal of curiosity, which enables him to make the most out of his adventures. Even when he's in the confines of the print shop, he reads on the sly. He teaches himself to read. And, so he's curious about the mad, how he can help them. He's very a kind, empathic man.
Oh, he sounds lovely. Absolutely lovely. Now, what kind of mood should a reader be in when they sit down to first really explore this narrative?
I think the reader should be ready for a quest, a kind of questing story. So it will be the kind of story that will take you places you didn't know you were going to go. And to be open to that, and to be curious, and to go along for the ride, I would say that.
Oh, yeah. Gorgeous. Yes. Yeah. Now, before I dive into the nearly final story question, is there anything that we haven't covered that you feel as though you'd like to bring forward?
I thought all the questions were quite wonderful. I'm not sure that I have anything else to say. Maybe I'll bring up Marilena a little bit. So Marilena is the friend on the island of Tenerife of Tonina, and she became really a very important character because Tonina invites her to go along on this adventure that's kind of crazy and spontaneous at the time. And Marilena, who is the map colorist, decides, okay, I'm going to go. She has been taking care of her father. She's been coloring the engravings that are the maps at the time. I'll say a word about that because I found that interesting. Apparently, these engravings, and some of you may have heard of Mercator or Ortelius, who are the map makers of that time. So there were engravings made of their maps, which were often used as art. They weren't widely distributed until later, but and while the men designed and the maps, Mercator,
Mhm.
Ortelius, and their workshops, women would color the maps and also add their touches to the maps, such as, they might add a sea dragon in the ocean, or they might add some fanciful creatures, into the map that were not particularly engraved there, but they were always anonymous and they were not recognized. So Tonina is one of those women. I'm sorry, Marilena is one of those women, but Tonina also helps her. She has helped
Mhm.
her with the coloring of the maps too. So it turns out that her skills are very useful when they reach the unknown island and they want to survey where they're going and where they've been. So, and their friendship also is very strong and important in the book.
Oh, wow. That's fabulous. And in I typically say in one sentence, but in reality, however,
Sorry, I'm kind of
why?
long-winded, but I'll try.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're totally fine. So why? Why should someone pick up this book?
I think, of course, it depends on the individual and what appeals to the individual, but I really believe that you're in for a big adventure. And I really think that every one of us in our lives has some point at which we feel outcast. And
Mhm.
this is a story of outcasts and then castaways. And I think something will be discovered along the way that will be really interesting, exciting, challenging. So go for the adventure. Yeah.
Ah, stunning. And with that, I want to thank you for just a truly fantastic conversation. And for anyone who's watching, know you can pick up Secure anywhere books are sold. It's available in ebook, in paperback, and I believe we also, if it is not available in audiobook, it will be shortly. So, uh, again, keep that in mind that you can experience this in so many different ways and it's such a gorgeous and absolutely stunning narrative. And thank you, Regina. Thank you for sharing this incredible story with us. And thank you for spending your Friday morning with us.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for inviting me. I enjoyed this tremendously.
Ah,
Yeah. And
completely my
happy,
pleasure.
happy reading to the readers. Yeah.
Happy reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay!
Yay,
Okay.
we did it.
And I apologize. I goofed. I hit the wrong button. And then I was like, ah, I hit the wrong button. So thank you for not jetting. So fantastic. So fantastic. I mean, really a fabulous conversation.